Lara Spencer destroyed Prince Harry live on Good Morning America after a heated on-air clash that shocked millions. What really happened behind the scenes, and why Lara refused to back down, will leave you speechless. Stick around, hit subscribe, and let's break down the full explosive moment. The moment everything snapped on live television was not loud. It was a tiny shift in tone that carried more weight than any argument. Lara Spencer leaned forward in her chair on Good Morning America and asked a question that landed with a sharp edge. Prince Harry froze for half a second, and his face tightened in a way that told the audience something had just gone wrong. The studio stayed quiet, but the tension spread fast and even the viewers at home felt it. Harry tried to hold his smile, but it looked forced. Lara kept her voice steady, but there was a new firmness in how she spoke, like she had decided to stop playing along. That change hit him hard. His eyes moved from Lara to the crew, and then back to her, as if he was searching for an escape. The air in the room felt heavy, and the audience members shifted in their seats because they knew they were seeing something real and uncomfortable. The moment clipped online instantly. People started recording the live segment from their TVs and phones, posting it on every platform they could reach. Comments poured in within minutes, and clips spread faster than the show itself. Nobody knew the full story yet, but everyone wanted answers. Why did Lara switch her tone so suddenly, and why did Harry react like he had been caught off guard? Stay with me because this is only the surface. There is a full chain of events behind this moment, and it gets more intense once you see what happened before and after the cameras went to break. Do not miss the next breakdown, and subscribe now. Prince Harry arrived at Good Morning America as part of a long cycle of interviews he had been doing to support his new project. His team wanted this appearance to feel warm and easy because GMA usually runs friendly conversations that highlight the guest's message. The plan was simple. He would talk about the project, share a few personal reflections, and close the segment with a positive tone. Nothing about the schedule suggested that anything dramatic would happen. His staff expected a safe morning show environment, not a confrontation. Before the show began, producers held a short briefing with Harry's team. They reviewed the questions that were approved, the topics that should stay light, and the areas that needed careful handling. Everyone agreed that the interview should avoid anything that felt heated or argumentative because Harry had faced a long wave of criticism in recent months. He looked tired from the constant media pressure, so the plan aimed to protect him from any new controversy. The notes focused on keeping the conversation centered on his new work, which was the safest place for him during this press run. Even with that plan, the producers were already uneasy. There had been talks behind the scenes about how unpredictable his interviews had become. Some of his recent appearances went off script because he reacted strongly to certain topics. A few producers had followed those clips online and noticed that viewers were divided. Some supported him, but many felt that he became defensive too quickly. That made the GMA team cautious because the morning show atmosphere is built on smooth transitions and steady pacing. One awkward moment could disrupt the entire segment. Lara Spencer received her briefing as well. She understood the boundaries, but she also knew that viewers wanted honesty. She wanted the interview to feel real, not staged, so she planned to press gently if Harry started to drift into rehearsed talking points. This made the producers even more tense because they could sense how delicate the balance was. They hoped everything would stay calm, but something in the air suggested that the segment might not go as planned. Lara Spencer has a calm and polished interviewing style that works well on live television. She listens closely, keeps her tone steady, and guides the guest without making the conversation feel forced. She usually avoids putting pressure on anyone because morning shows rely on comfort and warmth. But on this day she came in with a sharper mindset. She had read every note her team prepared, and she felt that Harry had been giving the same soft answers on every network. She wanted the audience to hear something real, so she decided to push a little harder than usual. From the moment Harry sat down, she noticed that he looked rehearsed. His posture was stiff, and his answers had a polished rhythm that did not match the mood of the studio. Lara tried to ease him in with simple questions, but he stayed locked into the exact lines his team had prepared. The energy felt flat, so she chose to challenge him earlier than planned. It was not aggressive, but it was firmer than what viewers expect from her. She asked a question that stepped slightly outside the approved list, and that was the spark that changed the entire tone. Viewers at home did not see the early warning signs, but people on set felt the tension rise. A few crew members exchanged looks as soon as Lara shifted her body and leaned in. Harry noticed it too. His eyes tightened and he took a slow breath before answering. The sound crew could tell his voice had dropped in confidence, even though he tried to hide it. Lara stayed composed, but she had already made her choice. She was going to press him until he gave something authentic. Off camera, the staff reacted fast. A stage manager whispered into a headset. A producer moved closer to the monitor and signaled to another team member. They recognized the pattern, and they knew Lara was steering the interview into more serious territory. The control room became alert because once a morning interview starts to crack, it can break wide open without warning. Everyone stayed focused, but they understood that Lara was setting up a direct challenge, and Harry was struggling to keep his balance. The moment that pushed the interview into dangerous territory came with a simple question. Lara asked Harry why his public messages about privacy did not match the number of media projects he continued to promote. The question was clear and it was not hostile, but it landed with force. Harry stopped speaking for a full second, and the pause felt heavier than anything that had happened earlier in the segment. His shoulders pulled back. His jaw tightened. His eyes moved away from Lara for the first time since the interview began. That was the first sign that he had been caught off guard. His voice changed when he answered. It lost the smooth tone that his team had trained into him. The words came out slower and his breathing shifted. He tried to explain that privacy meant something different to him now, but the answer sounded defensive. He used phrases that sounded like they came straight from a talking point sheet, and the audience could hear the strain. Even viewers at home could sense that this was the exact topic he hoped to avoid. It did not matter how he phrased it. His body language was telling the real story. Lara noticed the shift right away. She saw the tension in his jaw and the small twitch near his left eye. She saw the way he adjusted his seat and tried to create space between them. She responded with a controlled nod and asked a follow-up question that went straight to the point. She asked if he understood why the public felt confused by his approach. That question hit harder than the first because it forced him to address criticism instead of repeating safe lines. Her tone stayed calm, but her focus tightened and Harry felt the pressure rise. The energy in the studio changed again. The cameras caught a cutaway shot of the audience, and a few faces showed concern. A woman in the front row leaned back. A man near the aisle raised his eyebrows and looked toward the crew. The wide shot of the studio showed a quiet room that suddenly felt much smaller. Even the lighting made the moment feel sharper because the shadows on Harry's face became more obvious. Harry tried to recover by shifting the conversation toward his project, but Lara did not let it slide. She asked him to address the gap between his message and his actions. This pushed him into a corner because any answer would draw attention to his past statements. His posture collapsed slightly, and he crossed his arms for a moment, which signaled his discomfort to anyone paying attention. The director in the control room ordered another cutaway shot, this time to Lara. She looked calm but alert, and her expression made it clear that she saw the real crack forming. Viewers could sense that something important had shifted. The interview was no longer a friendly morning segment. It had become a direct challenge and Harry was not ready for it. Lara waited until Harry finished his long and shaky answer. Then she moved in with a calm but very direct question. She asked him why the timeline of his public statements did not match the choices he had made with his media work. Her voice stayed steady and she kept a polite expression, but the question carried real weight. Harry opened his mouth to respond, but his words stalled. He tried to shift the topic back to his new project because he wanted safe ground. The attempt did not land. It felt like a clear attempt to escape the moment, and the audience picked up on it right away. Lara did not allow the redirect. She held her position and repeated the part of the question he avoided. She pointed out specific dates tied to the interviews he had done. She mentioned the release of his documentary and the press tour that followed. She explained the gap between his message about wanting a quiet life and the level of publicity he had chosen. Her tone never changed. She sounded like someone who wanted answers, not excuses, and that made the moment even sharper. Harry tried again to move the conversation back to the safe script, but this time he stumbled. The words came out in a way that sounded unsure. He shifted in his chair, and his eyes dropped to the floor for a moment before he pulled them back up. His voice had lost its earlier confidence. He tried to explain that the timeline looked different from his point of view, but his explanation did not address the facts Lara had just listed. The contrast between her clarity and his confusion filled the room. Lara then pulled up a note card that had more details. She read a short section that highlighted a clear contradiction between his statements and his actions. The card was simple, but the information on it was direct. When she finished reading, the camera cut to Harry. His face tightened, and his jaw moved like he was trying to hold back frustration. The studio was silent until someone in the audience let out a small gasp. It was not loud, but it was enough to show that everyone felt the impact. The moment read as humiliation because of how the power shifted on air. Harry entered the interview with the usual status of a high-profile guest. He expected to control the tone and keep the room on his side. But when Lara challenged him with precise facts and a confident delivery, the balance changed. She held the clarity. She held the structure. She kept the audience with her because her questions were rooted in things people had already noticed. Harry did not have the same grounding. His answers sounded uncertain, and that uncertainty showed on his face. As the camera stayed on him, his posture weakened. His shoulders dropped a little, and he leaned back as if he wanted to pull away from the moment. Lara maintained a calm and steady position. The contrast between them made the scene feel uneven. Viewers could tell who was in control. The audience on set sensed it too, and a few people shifted in their seats as if they were watching something too personal. By the time Harry tried to respond again, the damage was done. He did not recover the authority he had at the start of the interview. Lara had taken control of the conversation with facts and timing, and he could not find a way to match her. That loss of footing, combined with the live setting, created a moment that looked and felt like a public collapse. It was subtle, but it was powerful, and it set the stage for everything that followed. The second the show cut to commercial, the studio atmosphere changed in an instant. The calm smiles that the cameras captured dropped the moment the lights shifted. Crew members who were standing near the stage later shared that Harry moved back in his chair with a sharp breath the second the microphones went cold. He looked tense and frustrated, and his hands kept moving in small, restless patterns. One person said it looked like he was trying to pull himself together but could not decide what emotion to land on. His face still showed the impact of Lara's last question because it hit him harder than he expected. A few staff members quietly stepped toward the stage, not to interfere, but to stay close in case the segment needed to be redirected after the break. Harry spoke in a low voice to someone from his team, and the crew could not make out every word, but the tone was clear. He was upset about the direction the interview had taken. He kept pointing toward Lara's side of the table as if the problem was not just the question, but the way she asked it. His breathing was uneven, and he pushed his hand through his hair several times, which showed how shaken he was. In the control room, things were even more intense. Producers were scrambling to figure out how to handle the next part of the interview because they knew the energy had shifted too far to ignore. A senior producer asked for a backup plan in case the interview needed to be cut short. Another producer suggested a softer question for the next segment to steady the tone, but nobody agreed on the best move. The room felt tight because every option came with risk. Cutting the interview would draw more attention, but pushing forward without adapting could create an even bigger problem. There was one person who did not show any sign of stress, and that was Lara Spencer. She remained seated and calm, almost untouched by the tension in the room. She flipped through her cards again even though she already knew the order. Her breathing stayed slow. She kept her shoulders relaxed. She looked like someone who had prepared for exactly this moment. A crew member who walked past her said she had the expression of a person who knew she asked the right question, even if it created a storm. Harry's team tried to steady him, but his eyes kept drifting back toward Lara. He looked frustrated because he realized she was not flustered, not shaken, not thrown off by his reaction. She looked ready to continue the moment the cameras came back on. That contrast hit him hard because he had lost control of the room, and she had gained it without raising her voice. When the floor manager called out that they had 10 seconds left before returning from commercial, the entire studio froze for a breath. Producers waited. Crew members stayed silent. Lara looked forward with the same calm focus. Harry straightened his jacket and tried to settle his expression, but his frustration still showed at the edges. The cameras came back on, and everyone knew the next moments would decide how far the confrontation would go. The moment the segment ended, clips of the exchange flooded Twitter and it felt like the entire platform moved in fast motion. Users posted screen recordings of the tense stare between Lara and Harry. Some people claimed they had never seen Harry look that unsettled on live television. Others argued that Lara handled herself with the kind of confidence that comes from years of hosting high-pressure interviews. The first hashtag started trending before the show even cut to its next guest, and it kept climbing with every new clip. People began uploading slowed-down videos that focused on Harry's expression as Lara pushed back on his comments. These posts gained thousands of likes in minutes. Some viewers said Harry looked irritated, while others said he looked embarrassed. The split in opinions made the conversation even louder. Then someone paired the moment with dramatic music, and that edit spread across the platform so fast that even verified journalists were sharing it with surprised reactions. TikTok took things even further. Short clips of the confrontation appeared on the For You page almost instantly. Many users added their own commentary over the footage and explained why they thought Harry seemed more defensive than usual. Some focused on Lara's calm delivery and argued that she held the interview together when it started to go sideways. Others said Harry was not prepared for someone to push back on him so directly. The disagreements made the clips go even more viral because people were stitching each other and arguing back and forth in real time. Soon, two clear groups formed. One side posted comments saying Lara had been rude and had crossed a line by pressing Harry so hard on his choices. The other side praised her for asking the questions that many journalists avoid. They said she stayed professional while Harry let his frustration show. The debate grew intense as both sides accused each other of ignoring important context. Some creators even started hosting live streams where they replayed the segment and broke down every second like sports commentators. Media analysts stepped in because the argument was spreading so quickly that news outlets could not ignore it. Several analysts pointed out that the tension in the interview revealed deeper issues that Harry has faced for years. They said he often struggles when interviews shift away from safe topics and move into areas where the messaging has to be tighter and more consistent. Others defended him and said he reacted the way anyone would when faced with questions that challenged their motives on national television. They argued that the intensity of the moment had been blown up by social media, because viewers tend to latch onto conflict more than nuance. By the time the evening coverage rolled around, the story had taken on a life of its own. Commentators debated whether this confrontation would follow Harry for weeks or fade by morning. People were still posting new angles from their televisions, and each clip added new fuel to the conversation. It was clear that the moment had struck a nerve with both supporters and critics, and no one wanted to be left out of the discussion. Harry's team moved fast once the cameras stopped rolling. They knew the clip was spreading online and they tried to regain control before the narrative locked in. The first talking point they pushed was that the entire exchange had been misinterpreted. They claimed Harry was not upset with Lara and that his tone had been taken out of context. They said the moment looked tense only because the topic was sensitive. The problem was that millions of viewers had already formed their own opinions, and many people felt the explanation sounded too practiced. Soon after, the team tried to shift the story toward Harry's ongoing work in mental health. They framed the interview as a chance for him to highlight the pressure that public figures face. They said he had only reacted strongly because he has spent years speaking about emotional stress and wanted to make sure the conversation did not turn into a tabloid moment. The approach might have worked if the viral clip had looked calmer, but the footage showed him visibly frustrated. The audience had already watched his body language change, so the attempt to reframe the moment did not convince many people. Some analysts said the messaging missed the target because it felt disconnected from what viewers saw with their own eyes. They argued that media consumers today are more aware of PR strategies, so vague explanations only make the backlash grow. Others pointed out that Harry's team tried too many different angles at once. The constant shift in tone made it look like they were scrambling instead of taking a clear position. The more they tried to push the idea that nothing serious happened, the more viewers pushed back. By the afternoon, Harry was trending for reasons his team did not want. Comment sections filled with people questioning the official statements. Many viewers said the confrontation did not match the polished narrative his team was trying to sell. Some said it felt like the entire response had been written in a rush. Others said the moment would have faded much faster if the team had taken a straightforward approach from the start. The attempt to control the story ended up drawing even more attention to the tension on screen. Once the show ended and the cameras were off, Lara Spencer gave a short, calm comment to a waiting reporter. She thanked Prince Harry for appearing on the program and said she appreciated the opportunity to discuss important topics. Her tone was measured and professional, almost as if nothing dramatic had happened, but that was exactly what made it striking. She did not defend herself or gloat, she simply stated the facts and let the audience draw their own conclusions. That subtle approach immediately gave the impression that she had been in control the entire time. The public quickly sided with her because she did not overreact or engage in any personal attacks. People admired that she held her composure while pressing for accountability. On social media, many noted that her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with Harry's visible frustration, making her appear grounded and credible. Viewers felt she had asked the questions that needed to be asked, and done so without theatrics, which made the moment feel authentic. The fact that she did not attempt to capitalize on the confrontation herself only strengthened the perception that she was focused on journalism rather than drama. Media analysts explained that Lara's strategy was both subtle and brutal. By staying calm, she forced Harry's reactions to speak louder than her words. She allowed the contradictions and inconsistencies to come forward naturally, so the audience could see the tension without her having to highlight it aggressively. Experts said this approach demonstrates a deep understanding of how live television works. The more she maintained composure, the more control she had over the narrative, and the more the audience absorbed the full impact of the interview. In the end, her quiet confidence and strategic restraint ensured that she came across as authoritative, credible, and unshakable, cementing the moment as one of the most talked about interviews in recent memory. The fallout from the GMA confrontation has already started to shape Prince Harry's image in the United States. Many viewers who once admired his candidness now question his motives and his judgment. Social media clips, viral commentary, and news analysis have painted a picture of a public figure struggling to manage criticism and control his narrative. This moment will likely linger in public memory longer than any of his previous interviews because it exposed a level of vulnerability and defensiveness that people had rarely seen. Future interviews are expected to be far more cautious. Sources close to his team suggest that Harry may now insist on stricter guidelines, pre-approved questions, or even limited live interactions to avoid another high-profile confrontation. Producers at networks are reportedly already discussing potential restrictions to minimize risk, understanding that a repeat of this intensity could spark another social media storm and damage his credibility further. Every interaction he has in the spotlight will now be measured against the viral GMA clip, which will likely serve as a benchmark for both media strategy and public expectation. This moment could redefine his public persona in a lasting way. People may start to associate him less with authenticity or advocacy and more with defensiveness and calculated media appearances. The perception of being unable to handle direct accountability could overshadow previous efforts in philanthropy or mental health awareness. While he still has a loyal fan base, this interview has introduced new skepticism into the conversation, forcing him to reassess how he presents himself and how he engages with media in the United States and around the world. What was meant to be a promotional appearance may instead become a turning point, marking a shift in the balance between celebrity image and public scrutiny that will follow him for years to come. Lara Spencer's victory in this confrontation was not about aggression, it was about control. From the moment the interview began, she established a subtle power imbalance that favored her. She remained composed, calm, and focused while Prince Harry's emotions fluctuated visibly. Her posture was confident, her gestures measured, and her eye contact unflinching. Every question she asked built on the last, forcing him to respond while keeping the narrative momentum in her hands. The audience could sense that she was steering the conversation, and Harry, despite his preparation, had to follow her lead. Body language played a major role in how this moment was perceived. Lara's relaxed composure contrasted sharply with Harry's tense movements, shifting weight, and occasional defensive gestures. Small cues, like her steady hands and neutral facial expressions, made her appear grounded and authoritative. Harry's attempts to redirect or explain himself were undercut by these visual signals. Viewers unconsciously read this imbalance and interpreted it as dominance. The combination of words and nonverbal cues made it clear who held the upper hand in the room. Media training also factored into the outcome. Lara knows how to guide a live interview without overstepping, and she used every technique at her disposal to expose contradictions while remaining professional. Harry, on the other hand, relied on lived experience and personal narrative. While that can create empathy, in this situation it made him vulnerable to scrutiny. He could not rely on rehearsed strategies, and his emotional responses made him appear less controlled. Once the confrontation escalated, humiliation became almost unavoidable. The careful build-up, strategic questioning, and visual cues aligned perfectly to create a moment where the audience saw him unravel, while Lara remained untouchable, leaving a lasting impression of her journalistic skill and authority. The GMA confrontation between Lara Spencer and Prince Harry will be remembered as one of the most intense moments in daytime television history. From the moment the tension sparked, the interview escalated into a full-scale examination of Harry's choices, public persona, and the way he has managed his privilege. Lara's calm but relentless questioning exposed contradictions in his statements, challenged his narratives, and created a dynamic where the audience could see a clear power shift. Harry's attempts to redirect or defend himself only emphasized the growing imbalance, making this more than just a tough interview. It became a public reckoning. The fallout from this interview is likely to ripple for months. Social media reactions, viral clips, and analysis from both traditional and digital media outlets have already shaped public perception. Harry may need to rethink how he approaches interviews, his public messaging, and the way he balances personal storytelling with accountability. Networks will likely approach future appearances with caution, and he may insist on tighter controls to prevent another live confrontation of this magnitude. The incident has set a precedent that high-profile guests, regardless of status, are not immune to direct accountability when their narratives are questioned. In blunt terms, this was a defining moment that showcased Lara Spencer's skill, preparation, and composure. She managed to hold a celebrity accountable without appearing cruel, and she did so in a way that the audience could clearly interpret and respond to. Prince Harry, despite his experience with media and public scrutiny, was visibly overwhelmed, highlighting the power of precise questioning and the effectiveness of professional poise. If you want the full dramatized script, breakdowns, and more explosive celebrity clashes, hit subscribe now. Do not miss the next deep dive into moments where public figures are confronted live, the strategies that journalists use to hold them accountable, and the reactions that follow. Make sure you subscribe and stay ahead of the drama as it unfolds.